Hey, Jake,
Yeah, what's up?
let me tell you something, man.
Okay.
What are the top 3 movies from your childhood that you find most inspiring?
Ooh. Okay, yeah. Well, it just so happens I have a list of those right here. And my number one most inspiring childhood movie would have to be Spirited Away by Hayao Miyazaki. That is a movie that has stuck with me throughout my entire life. I saw it pretty soon after it was released in the US, like 2002, 3, very early. It was at the first house I ever lived in. And for a long time, it was just a really good movie that I liked. But the past recent years, as I start getting more and more into filmmaking, I start respecting it more and more as a filmmaker, because a lot of how it goes about showing its story and presenting all these interweaving plot threads, it's just so masterfully done. And I'm not saying it's like an overly complicated movie or anything, but like the movie, in case you don't know, Spirited Away is about a young girl named Chihiro and her two parents. They get trapped in the spirit world, and her two parents are taken hostage, turned into pigs, and she has to work in this bathhouse for the spirits. And on paper, it sounds very weird, very dark, but
You wouldn't expect spirits to need to take a bath, man.
there's a lot of things about this movie you wouldn't expect. And I think that's kind of what makes it so special, because there isn't another Spirited Away. Just like how there isn't another Hayao Miyazaki, there is nothing really quite like Spirited Away.
Has Hayao Miyazaki only worked on Spirited Away, or has he done the other Ghibli movies as well?
Pretty much the big Ghibli movies that you hear about, those are all him.
Howl's Moving Castle?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one a lot.
Yeah, Howl's Moving Castle. He did Princess Mononoke. He did Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind, Castle in the Sky.
Porco Rosso?
He did Porco Rosso.
That's on my list.
Yeah, no, he's the heavy hitter of Ghibli. He's like the father of Ghibli. But going back to Spirited Away for a second. No, like it just really, because I've been trying to get better at my writing. You and I, we write our own short films, we write our own skits, whatever, and it's a lot of fun. But it's so, just like anything, it's really easy to get wrong, or to miss something, or to not explain something clearly, or throw in something that you realize is superfluous, blah blah blah. Like if there's a really thin line between something that's unnecessary, superfluous, versus something that is world building, something that serves a purpose that may not just be recognizable when it's first debuted. And that's something that I believe Spirited Away has in spades, like world building versus superfluous details. Because it's so quirky, and you get a sense of all these side characters and what they like, and they're goofy, but they have different sides to them, and the story just comes together, and it comes into a beautiful message at the end, without spoiling it, but it is an older movie. It's just such a good emotional ride, and it's beautiful. And even as a cartoon movie, I feel like shot composition and directing, even, you can learn a lot from that movie by shots they hold on, shots that are far away, quiet shots with or without music. It's really a masterclass in cinema, like regardless of it being cartoon or otherwise. So that is, to this day, the heavy hitter for me.
I remember, because you showed me Spirited Away, and I remember thinking like, it was like that scene with Quicksilver in Age of Ultron. He's like, "Is this show?" Like, I was like, "Is this Studio Ghibli?"
Yeah.
Like, bro, because like I didn't grow up with it, so I don't have the same appreciation as you. But a lot of what you said, like, yeah, like it was like, you know, when I was watching the movie, like, wow, this is like really good, and I like that it had this way of just kind of like making you like feel pleasant.
Yeah.
And it took me back to when, shit, man, when I was like a kid, just kind of like watching these cartoons like early Saturday morning. So like it was like, wow, I haven't watched a movie at, you know, at 20 something years old that can kind of take me back like to my childhood upon first viewing. That movie made me nostalgic, and it was my first time watching it. You feel me? So it was like, wow. So yeah, so I'm okay. I'm with that. That's a good pick.
Yeah, and that's without me even mentioning the Joe Hisashi soundtrack, which
I didn't even talk about the good shit yet.
Like the soundtrack of almost every Ghibli movie, maybe everyone, it is just so it really makes the movie so much better. And the movie is already a masterclass on its own. So it's like something you don't really experience much in your life. It's a very special movie to me. But moving on to my second choice, and we're going in order. I have these ordered from like most inspirational. My second most inspirational has got to be Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man movie. I remember seeing that in theaters as a little boy, and
little boy.
It really just introduced a lot of topics and themes, because it was a more mature movie. You know, it's a PG-13 superhero movie, and being a 3-4-year-old little boy, I hadn't seen those stories before. So not only did it introduce me to those stories, but it kind of just introduced me to mature themes and like Willem Dafoe, Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, like, is a masterclass. Okay, and this is all bias, of course. It's just the acting is so... It's so exaggerated in a lot of places, but for the better. Like, there are a lot of really dramatic movies where the acting is praised for its subtleties, but the Raimi trilogy, and I'll just talk about the first one though, I really like what he does with what Raimi does with his actors. It seems like in moments of high emotion, he has them overact. And this is just me guessing. I haven't seen any, behind the scenes work, because it just seems like they ham it up in the movie, but because everything is like heightened in those scenes, it comes across as like normal almost, or like not corny. It balances out. Like they're just all the memes of Tobey Maguire's face. Tobey Maguire is a great actor, but Sam Raimi really had him like go to extremes with the amount of facial expressions and screaming he did, and just
the
grunting.
Scenes too, low-key.
What?
The crying scenes.
The crying scenes, and just as a filmmaker now, I really appreciate that, because it kind of crossed the extreme of being goofy. It went all the way goofy past that to being like really emotional. And it's like he had a real fine grasp on what he wanted the audience to feel and how to make them feel that way. And as a filmmaker, that's something I aspire to do one day. And that's just that's disregarding how I feel about it as a non-filmmaker. As just a normal person, that movie's the reason why I like Spider-Man.
Wow.
Like, that's the reason why he's my favorite superhero. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero, and Tobey Maguire will always have a soft spot in my heart as my Spider-Man. Like I'm not saying he's the best Spider-Man. I'm saying like he is my Spider-Man. Like people grow up, they have their James Bond, they have their I don't know, fucking Doctor Who or whatever the fuck. I have my Spider-Man, and that is a very special thing for me. It's something I revisit a lot. But my number 3 pick is going to be a little different. It goes in a different direction, but I think it's also really indicative of my current tastes in stories and of movies, and maybe even media in general. And that would be, I believe it was 1979's Ridley Scott's Alien. I watched that as a very, very young kid, I think first grade, if I'm not mistaken. And as a kid, I was really scared of horror movies as a kid, to the point where like I would beg to see them, because as a kid you want to see what you can't watch, you know?
Not me.
Well, I was. And so I would beg to see Alien, I would beg to see The Grudge, 1408, all the good ones.
Oh, The Grudge, yeah. 1408.
And then I would see it, and then I would regret it, but then I would brag to my friends that I watched this crazy movie that they hadn't. And then the cycle continues, because I have to keep up the act, so I have to keep bragging I've seen these movies.
That's a vicious cycle, my brother.
It eventually burnt me out in late middle school, early high school. I stopped watching horror movies altogether.
Oh, wow.
And
I
then
did not know that.
I did, because I was like, they scared me and I don't like it. But I stopped for like a couple months, and then I realized like, oh, I miss it. And then literally ever since then, it's been my favorite genre. Wow. But going back to Alien. Alien, it's just, for me, Alien is the epitome of effective horror. Because we have movies like Hereditary, we have The Shining, where they're very complex. You dig into them, you can dissect them, you can analyze them, and the movie either gets better or you become more impressed by it, you get more admiration for it. Yeah. Alien is a very straightforward story. It's a very simple story. It's a monster movie. It's just a group of people, unassuming people, find something, it turns out to be a monster, and it kills almost all of them. And it's their fight to survive against it. That's it. But it's just, it just knew all the right ways to present itself. It's never boring. It's never, how do I say this? It never feels good. Even the first shots where nothing scary is happening, it's just them waking up from cryo sleep, but it's really, really, really quiet, and it's a static shot of all of their cryopods just opening slowly, and everything's like off-white yellow, and it just it's like fluorescent futuristic lighting. Unpleasant. Everything is unpleasant, but you might not realize it until the actual horror element is introduced, because these unpleasant things then become horrific, because the ship turns into their jail, their torture dungeon or something.
Their tomb.
And all of the unpleasant architecture, the gross lighting, everything is steamy and like hot and muggy looking in there. That all just becomes like a piece of the misery horror that it turns into. And just things like that. And also, I really like, and it's hard because or at least I grew up way after Alien was a new big thing. So I didn't really, and also I was very young, so I wasn't analyzing like this or wasn't looking out for it. I really like how Sigourney Weaver's character didn't start out as the main character. She was just the one that survived. And you don't really see movies like that much anymore. You always have a good sense of who is going to be the main lead.
I think possibly the most recent example of a situation like that, of a film like that I can think of is Riddick. That first Riddick movie.
Okay. Pitch Black?
Yeah.
Oh, explain.
Cause like,
oh, you don't think the prisoner is gonna be the one that survives? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, cause it was just a group of them, and like, yeah, it was Vin Diesel on the plane with them, but it was kind of like they weren't focusing on him like that. He was just like the one kind of like he's the sketchy guy.
Yeah, he's like the danger element or something.
Yeah, and every movie like that like has a sketchy guy. You know, an example popped into my head and then immediately popped back out. No, Old had a situation like that.
Old?
Have you seen Old?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because it's like it's all the people on the island, and then it was like that rapper dude.
Yeah, it was just on the beach.
Yeah, like nobody trusted him, so kind of like it's like, you know.
And he really turned into be a non-factor for the story. He just, well, I guess I won't spoil anything, but he didn't really serve a purpose, unless I'm forgetting something.
Yeah, man, this shit had me dead though.
Me too. But Alien, no, like. And I really think, I really admire how Ridley Scott was able to just take this simple, it could literally be a one-sentence synopsis, and he made a legacy out of it.
Yeah.
It's a masterpiece, at least in my opinion. Maybe other people think the same, but...
Do you think it's the best in the franchise?
Yeah. I like Aliens a lot. I think that's probably my second favorite, but as a whole, knowing everything I know now, I think the first one, I think the first one's the best because it has a lot of intrigue and mystery that the other movies kind of try to demystify, and I think that takes away from the grand scope of it. Like, I feel like part of the horror of Alien is not knowing where this thing came from, or not even knowing what it is, because that doesn't really matter to the story. It's just, there's a monster on board, there's an alien on board, and we need to survive. Yeah. The other movies just, they kind of keep going down the rabbit hole on what xenomorphs are, who created them, blah, blah, blah. And I think that kind of bogs down what the original set out to do. So yeah, Alien is my number 3, and Alien's just a favorite movie of mine in general. So yeah, that's mine. So what are your top 3 inspirational childhood movies from your childhood?
Well, I just got chills when I thought of them.
Oh.
You're like, oh, God. But no, top 3 for me in no particular order.
But if you had to order them, how would you order them?
If I had to put them in a random order,
yeah,
it would go like top 3 for me is The Mask of Zorro, Superman the movie.
Well, no, you have to explain. Mask of Zorro.
And Spider-Man. No, I was going to list them all, but then like go back and explain them.
Oh, fine.
But no, Mask of Zorro.
Yeah.
The Mask of Zorro, that was just, along with Spider-Man, just one of the first few movies I'd seen.
That's insane. I didn't even hear about Zorro.
Bro,
for a long time.
When I was a kid, nobody knew who Zorro was. So like, it's like, oh, there's all this cool stuff I want to talk about at school, but nobody knows what it is. They've never even heard of Zorro, so it's like,
that'd be funny if everyone saw The Legend of Zorro instead.
Like, only they're like, this is good. Everything else would be whack.
Sorry, I kind of sidetracked it. But,
no, it's good. But
what makes you like The Mask of Zorro so much?
Like, so the first few times I saw it, the stuff that I liked about it was just, you know, like the action is fun. He looks cool in the Zorro uniform. It introduced me to Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins, bro, and like, and then, you know, like it was like, okay, it's a fun movie, and then me and my cousin, we would pretend to be Zorro and stuff like that afterwards, like, so it was just fun like that. And then like I watched it, it was like a few more times, and it was like, wow, this is like really good acting, like, bro, like everything, every single line that Anthony Hopkins had, it was just so like, oh wow, like there's this like I can't even put it into words. It's like, it's not, he's not just saying like this is the deeper meaning, and like everything he says kind of just like has had weight to it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and like just like a wisdom that like when the younger Antonio Banderas character is talking to Anthony Hopkins, and you know he's yelling at him like, you got me like doing this and this, like that don't even make sense. It's like, you know, and
feel the experience disparity between them.
Yeah, because he, you know, Antonio Banderas, young guy, like coming at him with like all this like anger and stuff like that, and like it's justified, but Anthony Hopkins is legit looking down at him and just really calmly like, listen, man, I did the best I could. You know what I mean? And it's like, because also it's kind of like that sense like when you're my age, you'll understand it someday. And thus, like, you know, one, you're going to be an older man, you're going to be more experienced. Because, like, hey, Antonio Banderas' character, no matter what you do in this movie, you're never going to be on my level. You feel me? Because I already got, like, 30, 40 years of experience on you, man. You feel? So it's kind of, it's like that. And then, you know.
Dang, plenty of it was in jail, though.
That's crazy, yeah, bro. Yeah, like it just had some iconic scenes like that jail scene you're talking about where he's like who, like the dude comes in, he's looking for Zorro, and like everyone is just trying to like take his place for him. Like he was that guy. Like even in jail, like they would stick up for him.
That's a good that's a good point.
And again, like it's so quotable and it's iconic. He's like I'm Zorro. He's like, silence, you old fool! I am Zorro. I am the bad guy. Like. Even as a kid, it was like, oh, golly. But, you know, then, you know, I kept watching it. Like, the older I got, the more I was like, it's like, this is a cool shot. This kind of ties in with this a little bit. You know, just, like, really cool stuff. Like, I'm noticing, like music stings. Like, sometimes the character would just, like, look, and the music would be like, da-da-da-da! Like, just, like, intense, like everything about, and then, you know, you're watching like the special features, like the history of the character and like the history of just like making the movie. It was just really cool. And it was like, you know, and I'm not going to talk about this too much, but like I watched the sequel a few times too, and it wasn't as good. And like I watched the sequel a few times, and then I rewatched Mask of Zorro, and it's like, yeah, like the sequel it's like it was trying to like emulate what it did in the first one, and it just wasn't able to, which is weird because it was the same actors and the same director, the same studio.
I wonder if the writers were different.
Like maybe because like the story was kind of whack, you know. But again, it was like, and also like it was completely different tonally because it was made for kids. The sequel was PG. The first one was PG-13. So already with the PG-13 rating, you can get into legit just more mature themes, because a big thing about the Mask of Zorro, which I realized this later on, like it's a revenge story.
Yeah.
Alejandro wants revenge on the guy that killed his brother, and Don Diego de la Vega wants revenge on Don Rafael, because it's like, you legit just I can't just let you like fuck up my life, and I'm not gonna do something about it. And like but again, like I didn't realize this until later on. So like one thing I like about the movie is like the more I watch it, even after all these years, I've been watching it since like 2000, 2001 maybe.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of realizing something new, and like I like it when movies can do that, where it's like you can watch it surface level and it'll be fine, but when you really start to think about it, it has a lot of stuff for you to actually really start to think about. You know what I mean? So like it's it's layered, and I like that, and it's filmed well, and I like that. There's like some shots in there. It's like, wow, this looks like it looks like a painting, and it looks like one of those paintings where like it's on the wall for an hour. You're staring at it for an hour, and you just like you can't help but create a story in your head about like, what is this guy like doing here in the desert? And like, you know, like the dude's like brother got beheaded, and he had to like watch, and it was that guilt that ultimately led him to become Zorro. There wasn't anything like that in the sequel. It was just kind of like, it's Zorro, and he's older, and he's married, and he has a kid, and he's divorced now, and haha. In the first one, it was like it's a serious story about like, you know, revenge and everything like that, but it's still a fun movie. You can have your 3-year-old grandson watch it, and it's not gonna like, it's not one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a good movie, but like, you know, it's not like Django Unchained or something like that, where it's like, it's a good movie, but your kids should be watching it. This was a good movie, a lot of mature stuff in it, but like, yeah, little kids can watch it and have a good time and stuff like that. And if you're like me, you're just gonna keep watching it and keep kind of like loving it even more. And on top of that, you know, it's like fun swashbuckling sword fight stuff, and you know, and it's got the classic like romance tale to it too, with him and
woman
and Elena, and it's like wow, yeah, it's like, you know, it's got the action, the romance, it's like the whole package in a way, and it was just like really cool, and just like, I don't know how else to describe it other than like iconic. Because even like the way the like some of the sword fights are, like it's like the camera's like far away, but it's a long take, like almost no cuts, and it like in the bonus features they show you like the footage of the black and white serials, and like the shots are like that too. So it's like you're taking that, you're putting it in this, at the time, the late 90s like modern setting, but like it's just as thrilling. Even though, like, yeah, because I saw him do it like in 1939, I'm doing it now, but it's just like, oh wow, it's amazing in like every way almost, dude.
Yeah, it's a good movie. For me, it draws a lot of comparisons to the first Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically the first one.
Wow.
Just in the approach and the respect to the story and just the swashbuckling nature of it. Lots of comparisons there, but yeah, no. Mask of Zorro is very good.
You know what? I want a Pirates of the Caribbean Zorro crossover now. Because I'm thinking, like, what if he was on the ship at the end of Our World's End, like, oh, now we come. That would be really thrilling to see.
But what's your number 2, though?
I don't remember the order that I listed it, but one of them was the 2002 Spider-Man movie. Now this one I remember I saw in theaters, but it was also just one of those things. I've been watching it like my whole life, so it's kind of like, I don't know exactly where it began. Probably in the theaters, obviously, but like, it's like there was never a time where it wasn't really in my life. And
yeah, same.
Like, you feel me? And like, it was just so cool, like, because like you watch it, and again, like, surface level, it's a fun superhero movie. And like, because I lived with my cousin at the time, we lived in the same house, like we was watching it together, and again, like, we're quoting it all the time, we're reenacting legit all of the fight scenes, bro. Like all the jumping and stuff like that, like each other, like sometimes I would be Green Goblin, he'd be Spider-Man, and we were like switch, like, and like Corny's like, I could squash you like a bug right now, but I'm offering you a choice. Join me and imagine what we could accomplish together, what we could create, or we could destroy, cause the deaths of countless innocents in battle again and again and again and again until we're both dead. Is that what you want? Think about it, hero. And then he flies off, and it's like, oh, like, it's so cool. And then even the writing stuck out to us at that age, like that last scene, like he's like, like no matter what I do, the ones I love will always be the ones that pay. Like it always, like I didn't realize exactly what it meant at the time, but it was like, dang, they're all gonna pay, but it's like you're the one that's out here fighting all these villains. So it's like so as a kid, like I couldn't quite make that connect. Like I knew it was like something heavy, but it was like, wow. But like yeah, but then it's like you think about it, and then like you get older, it's like okay, yeah, because you know you gotta like step out on them or like abandon them and do all the or whatever. So, and then like I can't remember my cousin. We're like when he walked away from Mary Jane in that last scene, that funeral scene, the first one, and he's just walking away. He's like, "This is my gift, my curse. Who am I? I'm Spider-Man." We would always say that to each other, bro, because it was just like when he said, "This is my curse." For some reason, that just sounded so cool, and like, what do you mean by that? But I'm on board, Peter Parker. It was cool. And like the Spider-Man costume was amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted that costume and I wanted those powers. And also like you said, this was my introduction to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So I assume like this is legit just how it was. So like when I'm reading the comics and he has the mechanical like web shooters, I had no idea what that was about.
Those were always lame to me.
Like I think they visually look cool, but like yeah, it's kind of like you got to make a device for that. Like it seems like Syndrome-esque, where like he has to pretend to be a superhero and he has to like press all the buttons on his pad and then pretend to punch the head off the thing. It's like, nah, that's why I had to drop off for that. But that was cool. And yeah, like the acting, like you know, and just like the tone, like some of the kind of scary stuff, like when Norman Osborn is figuring out about the Green Goblin for the first time, because it's like I feel he's like I'm right here. It's like oh my god, you know, like he busts in on Aunt May when she's just like saying her prayer.
Oh
Can you understand how terrifying? Imagine you just like an old lady and like you know you're saying your prayers because you're about to like you know go to sleep and then like as you're saying your prayers, a metal like green demon just busts into your house and then tells you to finish saying your prayers like. As a kid, man, I was like, I can't believe he did that. Like, jeez. And then like the whole like Uncle Ben thing, dude. It was like I was like, wow. Like when he died, it was like, oh my gosh, like wow. That's like that's kind of heavy. He's like, and Uncle Ben was really just trying to help.
And another thing I really appreciate about that Spider-Man movie, in hindsight, is it's so easy. Because, yeah, I was a little baby when I watched this movie for the first time.
I cried like a baby when you played Cinderella. Peter, that was first grade.
Peter, you were a baby. No, one thing I really appreciate is how, and I think the acting has a good deal to do with this, is how easily understandable the story beats are and the emotional drive the characters have.
Yeah.
Because, like, as a little kid, watching Peter be over his dying uncle and go from crying to angry, chasing the killer, finding out the killer was the man he let go by him in the wrestling building. Yeah. All of that as a little 2 or 3 year old, I was able to get more or less. I was able to understand all these emotional beats because they were just so well executed. Yeah,
bro. And it's like I don't like not to like shit on the movies now, but like I feel like I don't get that a lot from like superhero movies these days. You know what I mean? Like
I think Wakanda Forever, it comes close, if not does it, because that is a very emotionally intelligent and emotionally full movie. But no, I agree with that statement though. Black Adam doesn't have shit on that. Not to shit on Black Adam, but like anyway.
But no, yeah, Spider-Man is good. And like also, you know, like kind of like to your point, like when Peter is just those scenes where he's not even talking, he's just like purely emoting. It's like wow, I feel that. Like when he was up on that statue, like I think after the guy that killed Uncle Ben had died, he was just like sitting there crying and like even like, you know, he's
He's blank face. He's just crying.
Yeah, like, and he's walking away from Mary Jane, like, just straight walking, like, kind of like deadpan face, but it's like you get like he understands like the weight that all of this is gonna.
The weight of everything.
Yeah, he understands that it's gonna be such a heavy weight of everything on this, and like how it's like this is gonna fuck up my life, but like I have to do this, because like I'm the only one that can, and it's the right thing to do. It's my responsibility now, and like then that obviously ties with the whole great power, great responsibility thing. It's like, I wish Uncle Ben was here to see this, like, golly, but yeah, like I love everything about it.
Yeah. Me too.
Everything. Like, I love that movie, man.
It's a classic. It is a true classic.
It is, bro. Man, when my kids are born, like these top 3 that I'm listing, and at least like 20 others, these are gonna be the first movies my kids see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited to do that with my kids too. I'm gonna show them all the Ghiblies.
Bro, before they go to kindergarten, Man of Steel, BVS, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Rush Hour, and what? Rush Hour 2.
You're gonna show them Zack Snyder's Justice League?
Yeah.
That early?
Yeah.
But Nick, what's your number 3?
Superman the movie.
From 1982?
No, you silly goose. That was 1978.
The same year that 70s show takes place in for a long time. That's really cool.
But yeah, cause so this was a big deal because Superman was, I think, my favorite superhero. Like at the time, I was like a little kid. Like he was my favorite superhero just initially because he had all the powers. And I remember I was at Costco one day with my mom, and I saw like Superman the movie. Like I knew generally of him. I didn't know like everything about his origins though. You know what I mean? So I was like, yo, Mom, like, buy this movie. This was like years after she said, when we go in this store, don't ask me for nothing. So I saw Superman the movie. I was like, oh shit, it's Superman the movie. I was like, Mom, you gotta buy this. Like, listen, it's not just Superman. Like, you can tell this is origin. That looks like his father Jor-El holding him, and like I think this will be a really good investment for everybody.
You're like 3.5.
Yeah, and like she was like, fine, and she bought it. I was like, I thought I was Wolf of Wall Street back then. But I watched it, and like, first time through, like, yeah, this is fucking dope. This is cool. Everybody on Krypton looks cool, and the Superman suit, like, that's cool. Like, he's flying around, and like, yeah, this is a dope movie with him reversing time at the end. Was cool. Like, and it was, I would like watch it all the time, like just like for those, like the scene where he decides to travel back in time, and like he sees Lois and he's like, he screams. Like, there used to be days I would, like, Saturday mornings I would just wake up, just go straight to that scene and watch it, like, because it was just like, again, like, yeah, the emotion was just so intense. Like, oh wow, like I've never seen Superman yell, not in the comics, not in the cartoons, man. So to see him, and like to yell like that was such like pain and anguish. Like, it was like, oh wow. And then like it leads to him like ultimately making the choice to like break a fundamental universal law just to save Lois. And it's like, wow, like, the physics and the science of the scene just don't add up to me, but like the intention behind it is kind of like, wow, he did that. That's him right there.
Yeah.
And then I hadn't watched it for like years. I rewatched it with you like last month.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
And rewatching it, it was because I was wondering, like, is this gonna hold up?
Right.
And it did. Like, when I was rewatching it, it was like, wow. Like the cinematography was amazing. The tone. There was like one of the first shots. It was them in that. It was a courtroom, but it was pitch black. You see, not even on a screen, but legit, you just see 3 like gray holographic floating heads with like the underlight, so they just look kind of like weird and creepy. And you look over like to the left and it's a single spotlight. It's like 3 people standing in some weird like circular thing, and it's like spinning around them, and it's like, what is going on? And then you see some old man in like what looks like the Neo suit with a white Superman crest on, holding a large crystal, just kind of like walking around like, you see, these motherfuckers is guilty. So like as a kid, it's like, and like rewatching it, was like, wow, this is like really well shot. And again, like there was no music to it, so like it was like this is a film right here. You know what I mean? And it was just, wow. Like again, like you feel the gravity of the scene, like, yo, whatever these guys did, it must be bad because they sent them to another dimension for prison. And this guy was like talking about like you will bow down before me, Joanne. And like he said you and your heirs, like I'm coming for the whole fucking family tree. And this was the first like 3 minutes of the movie, bro. So it's like, but then it's like they get sent off, and then they were the villains for part 2. But
Right.
and then you're watching the movie, and when I was rewatching it with you, like I was just really able to see like the humanity of Clark Kent in this movie. And like I know like Christopher Reeve, kind of like Henry Cavill now, which is an interesting parallel. Like when they were playing Superman, they wanted to show that he like really cared about like the people, and like he like really was just a genuinely good guy. Because one thing I kept seeing in the Christopher Reeve ones would be like when he's like fighting a villain in the street, like I think this might have been in the 4th one actually, but he was like, stop the people. Now it was a whack line, but it was like, that's what Superman is worried about though. Like at the end of the day, like he wants to protect people. And like, he's doing that interview with Lois Lane, and like he just, in that scene, he came across as just like incredibly charming, but incredibly like earnest and humble, maybe even like a little bit naive, but like not in a way where it's like you're a dumbass. It's just like you're extremely like hopeful and idealistic,
Right.
And even like when he was he's talking with Lex, and he's like, is this how you get your kicks, Luthor? By planning the deaths of innocent people? Like that's his initial thought. Like, you just like to think about this stuff. Lex said, no, by causing the deaths of innocent people. So it's like he's such a good guy, like he didn't even think that a guy as potentially evil as Lex Luthor was just so willing and like nonchalant about like killing people. So it's like, oh wow, like he's really just like a good guy. And like he's and then like when Lex like put that kryptonite like chain around his neck, he just dropped him in the pool, and he was asked, like Superman saw Miss Tessmacher, and he was like, you gotta help me save the people, like not even like save me, I'm about to die, like save me so that I can save everybody else, like because that's what his mind is on, is saving people. And it's just like he's like good, like for the sake of being good, like it's just genuinely him, and he's just so genuine. So rewatching that, like the way Christopher Reeves played him with that, and I think it also like, yeah, after all of this, like, oh, let's see like a kind of dark evil version of Superman. Rewatching Superman the movie, it was really refreshing, because it was just nice to see like, yeah, this is a Superman he's not all like, oh man, all this power, and like I don't know what to do with it, or like people.
It's the one everyone fell in love with.
What? Sorry. You talking about the Christopher Reeve one? Okay. When you said that, I thought you were talking about like the Dark Superman.
No,
so I was like,
literally like you and me and maybe like 1 or 2 other people like that. No,
But-
like the Christopher Reeve one, like, yeah, no, there's a reason why it's the blueprint for everything else for Superman.
yeah, and like I heard this somewhere. I don't know if it's true, so take it with a grain of salt. But I heard like whenever, like, right before they make a movie, Kevin Feige watches Superman the movie so that everyone will like have an idea of like, this is how superheroes act. And it's like, if they're doing that over at Marvel, like, wow. But yeah, it's upon rewatch, it was really nice to see just like that classic altruistic, benevolent like guy. You know what I mean? Like it was cool to see him like. He didn't have to go through that whole arc of like, I got to become Superman across multiple movies. He just started off like that, and like his costume was bright, so it contrasted against everybody else. And he like as a kid, like it was cool to see like how creatively like they used his powers in the movie too. Like when he had to like go underground, he's like, excuse me, he just spun around really fast and like created a tunnel. And the one that we saw, it didn't have the scene in it, but the DVD that I had, he's walking through the tunnel, and because he's walking over to Lex, and Lex has all these booby traps. He has like a bunch of machine guns shooting at him, and Christopher Reeve is just casually like walking through it, fire shooting at him and stuff like that. Again, just like casually walking through it, like you don't even feel it. And then like there was like a freeze thing, and like it froze Superman, and Superman was like smiling the whole time, and then he just like busts through, and then he knocks down Lex's door. He's like, bro, like, what the fuck you thought this was? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like wow. And it's like even like back then, like, yeah, no one could touch Superman. Like Lex had to fire 2 missiles in 2 opposite directions to get Superman to leave his house. Oh man, it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was incredible. And yeah, and like when he's talking to the Jor-El hologram, it's like, you get that, you kind of get the idea, like, they're kind of making like biblical allusions, because it's like he's talking to like his heavenly father, and like he's talking to him like not even like a person, but like oh, this is like the holy mission or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have to protect them if you want, but you got to do it like this specific way. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of like it was like God was talking to Moses kind of. And I like how they did that. It is kind of weird that a scientist would be talking to his son like that, like in like an almost biblical way, like you must be a savage of the people, like. But it was still cool to see. And it was clearly iconic, because almost every iteration of Superman after that would just harken back to that Christopher Reeve Superman. Oh, the music was incredible. That music is like I can't even explain like how iconic it is. Like John Williams' score for Superman, like that's my shit. I have that in my workout playlist. I have it in another playlist that I might have mentioned to you the other day. I have it in that playlist, bruh. Yeah.
We all know.
But yeah, I was playing it last night. But like every other, like the Brandon Routh Superman, that was obviously just Christopher Reeve Superman. But then like even Smallville, because Smallville would have the John Williams theme sometimes, and even like the end scene, like it was the suit that he had. It was a Brandon Routh suit, which again is based off of the Christopher Reeve Superman. So it was just like he was
him.
That Superman movie. It was the him of superhero movies, basically. Yeah. And even of like films, like it's in like the National Registry, I think it's called.
I believe, yeah.
And it's like, wow. And it was just a visual effects like spectacle. You'll believe a man can fly. Like that was the log line of it. So it was just like visually, like it was like wow. So yeah, that's top 3 for me, player.
Yeah, that's a good list. I was very quiet because I've only seen Superman the movie once, and that was with you a couple weeks ago, and I hardly remember it.
Oh, it was good. It was good. I would definitely rewatch it, man. It was solid.
Well, I'll take your word on that. And I think that'll do it for this episode of HeadCanon.
Hey, low key, bro. I think you're right.
Yeah, if you liked what you heard, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. New HeadCanon every week. And we will see you guys next time.
Peace out.